Okay, I normally start off with this sort of thing with, my name is Matt Campbell. My brother Jeff was murdered on 9/11. He was on or due to attend a conference on the 106th floor of World Trade Center 1. I know sort of some of the theme of this evening is to look at ways in which we can spread the word, wake people up, whatever phrase you want to use. I just wanted to start off with something my, she's now 13 going 14, daughter put together. We had about, I don't know, 45 minutes to, we're just in the moment, and she likes playing the guitar, and she put something together as a tribute to my brother. The other reason why I wanted to show this is I read a couple of days ago that one of the Jersey Girls' daughters has just recently put on a 3-day play in New York. And I'm pretty sure, I mean, last week I was at the memorial service in Grosvenor Gardens opposite the US Embassy. And, you know, I've seen over the years all the kids grow up who are now teenagers and obviously lost a dad or a mum. And, okay, not necessarily these children right now, or their parents are awake to stuff, but I'm hoping that, you know, other people can follow as family members to actually start participating in doing something to help, you know, get word out of the lies of the official story. So anyway, this is my daughter Phoebe. It's quite quiet, Rob, so you might have to adjust the levels.
It was September 11, they knew it was coming. You were in World Trade Center North Tower. It was a beautiful morning, the sky was clear and blue. They said the plane crash was a surprise, but they knew, I didn't have the chance to say goodbye to you. If only you knew what they had planned, you would have stayed away and you wouldn't have died. They said it was Al-Qaeda, but they lied. Let me tell you, all the towers came down at near free fall. That means no jackpot through fires could have even made that true. It was a controlled demolition, and they knew. I didn't have the chance to even say goodbye to you. If only you know what they had planned, you would have stayed away and you wouldn't have died. They said it was Al-Qaeda, but they lied. Gave them their justification for an illegal war. 3,000 dead souls led to 1 million more. The false flags have to stop, innocent lives are lost. We know. I didn't have the chance to even say goodbye to you. If only you knew what they had planned, you would have stayed away and you wouldn't died. They said it was Al-Qaeda, but they lied.
My daughter. Bless her. Yeah, will do. Since I first went sort of public, it was at the Reinvestigate 9/11 meeting at Passing Clouds last year. I've been involved with a number of initiatives, and they can be loosely grouped as stuff with the media, the authorities, and also a couple of trips to the US and a visit with the OCME, which is the Office of the Chief Medical Examiner in New York. I also took part, along with Niels, who's here, and Ian Henschel, in it was a bit of theatre, I think, a Kent University 9/11 debate. It was for a young skeptic who, I think it was for his play, hence the theatre. But I mean, I started doing a bit of research and just finding out that the huge number of Facebook groups and forums that are dedicated to being a skeptic. And they really should look at a definition of what a skeptic is, which is a person inclined to question or doubt an accepted opinion, and to confidently start out from a position of believing that the accepted opinion or hypothesis from the US government and media that 19 Muslim hijackers and Osama bin Laden, with pretty much no evidence that you could ever be admissible in a court of law, which is something that I believe Tony Blair put in as the preamble to one of his dossiers before they went to war in Afghanistan. It's just ridiculous. I mean, the burden of proof is on the US government. They were the aggressors. Anyway, you know all that. So the three things that I've focused on is media, the authorities, and the OCME. And I am a little bit disorganised this evening. I'm sorry. But if I start off with the attempts with authorities, I've had numerous meetings with the people from the Met, or certainly correspondents, the counter-terrorism people. I've been liaising and speaking with people from the Foreign and Commonwealth Office. I've also been in contact with a US Congress man. And I mean, without fail, all of them, and particularly the head of the North American FCO, we wholly believe in the independent, bipartisan this thing. They probably haven't read it. If they have, they certainly haven't read David Griffin's book. But just as a little aside in terms of reaching out and doing something slightly alternative, does anyone want to join me tomorrow, mid-morning, to do a little bit of libricide, if that's the right term? Because I would love to go and burn this outside the US Embassy. As Peter said, Peter Neathy, I hope I look good in orange. In terms of my interaction with the media, I've actually been in 3 documentaries. One's still being made, and that's like the real documentary. That's with a chap called Tony Rook, who I'm sure many of you here may know. He is aiming this film at police and military primarily. And he's just come back from the States a few days ago, had an excellent interview with Cynthia McKinney. He basically has said it's going to be on track. Probably, God bless him, it'll be definitely out for this time next year. He's got a bit more filming to do with myself and my mother. But the 2 other documentaries were with Channel 5, and the first one was, complete and utter bilge. It was called something like Terror in the Skies, or whatever the hell it was called. And I agreed to do it because I saw the list of questions beforehand. And it got to my favourite presses the right buttons question, which is, how do you feel X number of years on? And that question was put to me. So before that it was, talking about my brother and that kind of stuff and memories. And, I just came out with the whole don't believe the official story, elements of whatever within government, military, intelligence, blah, blah, blah. And, he just said, well, that's all good, but we can't use any of that. And, A, because he won't get past the lawyers, and B, that's not what he had obviously been commissioned to put together. He did afterwards say that he doesn't believe an awful lot of stuff. Didn't really get in too much into 9/11. But, you know, I was in and out and gone, and I knew it was going to be absolute crap, and it was awful. I think it was around July 4th that they aired it. A second mainstream documentary I was in was important to me from a personal point of view, which is, I think it aired in August, which was about the behind-the-scenes efforts of identifying the victims of World Trade, and that was with the Chief Medical Examiner. And, I mean, I did it partly because we know so little as British victims over here, family members over here. Very hard to get a trickle through of any information. But also for those that have had remains found, but also there's plenty of people who obviously haven't. I mean, it still is at the 1,115. That's 40% of all the World Trade victims. There's nothing left of them, or nothing being identified. And it has slowed to a trickle. It's been, I think, 4 over the last 16, 17 months. So I mean, it really has gone down to a trickle now. They keep doing repeated identifications, but you know, there's still hope, I guess, for some people, but it's going to be a handful of people, I'm sure. Anyway, so I did that, and there's a whole bunch of stuff which, if people are interested, I can tell you about that didn't make the documentary, and again, more examples of the media lying. I can talk about that. But, and then the other thing was, I've had there was a Sunday magazine article, and it was talking about the documentary, but it was also just, you know, obviously our experience and all the rest of it. And the young girl I was talking to, you know, we went through the standard questions, and she sort of said, you know, how do you feel 13 years on, and all that kind of stuff. And of course I went into it, and it's just, and I've had this actually from the Channel 5 people. They don't believe it either, but, you know, okay, this is a fairly junior person, but she's saying it won't get past the legal department. And oddly enough, when I spoke to the Met and the counter-terrorism people, and I was trying to get some reports and just documents that they had put forward to present to the coroner, and I had a list of questions, I was chasing them, haranguing the Met liaison officer, you know, practically every week. And there was like 2 tranches of questions, and in both occasions she said, you know, he's already come back with the stuff you've requested. It's now with legal. This is the Met. And they would sit on it for between 4 and 6 weeks. And what came through was, you know, we have no information. We have no information. This is a question for the US authorities. This is a question for the US authorities. And it was nothing. So I basically had no information. And this is it's just standard in all my attempts to try and reach out. I had 2 letters back from the FBI yesterday and today. I've been doing a whole bunch of freedom of information, it's got an A on the end of their thing, requests. You know, simple things to me, which are, you know, I'm trying to get my head around why there's been absolutely no investigation whatsoever in terms of what you'd expect from a murder case. I mean, just nothing. They haven't even got the, you know, the basic things of let's try and give me concrete proof of the identity of the 5 alleged hijackers on American Airlines 11 that allegedly flew into World Trade Center 1. You know, there's no proof that they're even on the bloody planes, and that's your first step before you start accusing them. And of course I went through a whole list of stuff. I want authenticated flight manifests, I want authenticated boarding cards or stubs, I want authenticated security videos, that's date, time, camera number, etc. Of the hijackers entering the airport, checking in, passing through security checkpoints and, you know, the gate. Sworn testimonies of personnel who attended the check-in, formal identification of the alleged hijackers' bodies. Now I know from, God bless it, media reports that at least 3 of the alleged hijackers have been identified at World Trade. Now I don't know which flights they're from. The lead forensics I spoke to, they don't know. They use these things called K codes, or the FBI basically gave them a whole bunch of stuff, so it might have been some sort of, I think I've read about stuff from a steering wheel, whatever, just which allegedly is from wherever they resided or were staying in the last few days. That's been given to the OCME, and all they do is basically, they've got a profile built from that. When they go through testing the remains, if something flags as one of the terrorists, they don't know who. It's basically given to the chief medical examiner or the deputy chief, and that's it. They've got no more involvement, and the remains are moved away from the victims. But they don't know who. Now, I've written to Mark Desire today to ask him, you know, of the 5 alleged terrorists on American Airlines 11, who's been identified. I think I have a right to know who, you know, allegedly carried out this attack, which ended up with my brother being murdered. But it doesn't stop there, and I don't want to get into, and I really don't want to get into all the mad, crazy theories, and some aren't mad, but they're out there. Planes, no planes, different things that brought down the towers. I'm not interested, but I have thought about also asking the FBI, you know, can you give me some positive identification of the aircraft designated as AA-11? Because there's just nothing. I've been to the museum. I was there when the day after they had the opening. I've gone round there. I mean, interesting, they've got a little section specifically about what really happened, and there's pictures of people holding up banners about about Building 7. And to completely counteract this, they've got, you know, the front of the NIST reports. They've got the front of Popular Mechanics and other stuff like that. So, you know, they've actually taken the effort to try and debunk people who are questioning stuff. But if you go round, there are airplane parts, but it's what I call non-functional or non-critical parts. It's like fuselage, etc. You know, the landing gear that was allegedly found between West and Rector Street, which would have a unique serial number, isn't there. I didn't go, but the crew that were doing the filming went up to, I think it's West State Museum, and there's a lot more aeroplane parts there. But again, there's nothing significant that you'd expect to have serial numbers on, which obviously would very quickly identify back to A11. Anyway, you know, that was the weapon that was used. Just everywhere down the chain of what you'd expect in a criminal investigation just hasn't been done. And I'm, I guess, lucky that my brother's remains have been identified, and we've had 4 multiple identifications. The forensic leads have basically said to expect a lot more over the next 2 years, because it's quite common. So I'm quite lucky, but you know, what about all those people who have had nothing? So not only has there not been a proper investigation, they've got no, it's not closure. I mean, not for everyone do you need to actually have remains, but there's just nothing. And I mean, I am personally surprised that more family members aren't speaking out. And just to go back to the memorial that was last Thursday, there was about 70 people there. 25 of us were reading out names, and I said, there's, you know, kids that are obviously grown up and all the rest of it. And I started speaking with a couple of family members who recognised myself, my mum, from the Channel 5 documentary. Because although some are quite active in the groups, I've been living out the country for 6 years. And I haven't really been to many of the memorials, or mum's always gone. Anyway, they came and had a chat with me. And one guy who I distinctly remember, because I've got the audio and the transcript of the inquest, kept repeatedly asking, what? Because his son was 86% found from the 106th floor, coincidentally, of the North Tower. And he just keeps questioning, why are there no remains? He just can't get his head around it. Anyway, he came up and talked to me, and it was kind of inappropriate to really start talking about stuff, because we're in the little memorial garden and everyone's around, and I didn't really want to go into it. But you know, I'm hoping that he will follow up and we'll have a conversation, because he knew about what I've been doing. He obviously Googled me and found a whole bunch of stuff. And I also know that there's another family member who's not on the email group. Sorry, he's on the email group, but wasn't there, I don't think, who has been approached by an independent filmmaker who's also obviously spoken with me about doing a very mainstream documentary, which will start from those that just have basic question about why was, you know, Bush reading a book about a pet goat upside down, right through to, you know, me and where I'm at. But the idea being that potentially there might be some mainstream interest. I mean, good luck with it, but they are trying to raise some serious cash to try and do that. Right, I've had my warning about how many minutes I've got left. The only other thing wanted to talk about was really what I'm trying to do on the legal front, because I think it's the only thing I can really do as a family member. And if I can find it, here it is. Yeah, so my brother's inquest was last January, and there's lots of things wrong with it, and so I'm trying to reopen the inquest. And I've had really encouraging conversations with a barrister, including last night, and I've got a meeting in about 3 or 4 weeks to go over a marshalled pack of evidence that I've been putting together to, first of all, reopen my brother's inquest, to see if we can petition the Attorney General, but also potentially a legal complaint against named individuals, which I don't want to talk about now, but that's another action I'm taking. But I'm just amazed on my brother's inquest. We've got this. So it basically states he's on the 106th floor. Now, I've got it in writing from the Met that they don't actually know where he was. They've picked that up from a website or a media thing saying he was just due to attend. There's no proof that he's on that floor. So that's the speculation bit. I have to concede he was definitely above the impact point because no one escaped from the North Tower above those floors. And then it says an aircraft AA-11 was deliberately flown into the building. And I said, where's the positive evidence of AA-11? Pretty important. Lots of confusion that day. Transponders went off. I think it's really important. It's standard in any sort of airplane crash. And then causing its collapse at 10:28, and there's obviously bucket loads of evidence by scientists, architects, engineers, etc. That there's no way that jet fuel could have brought down the towers. And this event was part of a coordinated attack by the Islamic militant group Al Qaeda. That's on the inquest form. And what really gets my goat is the fact that if you look at what inquests are supposed to do, they really aren't about apportioning blame. It's nothing to do with an inquest. It's not one of the 4 questions you're supposed to answer. So what is that doing as part of the official narrative on my brother's inquest form? So I want practically all that ripped off. All they can say is he died of multiple injuries. That's it on that day, because there's not a lot really known. Anyway, I'll yabber on. I'll take some questions. Have I got enough time?
Yeah, I'm afraid we don't have much time. But
sorry.
The 3 United Airlines planes flew that morning, but the American Airlines did not fly. They were not registered.
Yeah, the NTSB database.
They were not scheduled to fly that morning. So, not a lot of point trying to get evidence for what hijackers might have been on those planes.
I know that's a starting point that some researchers are looking at. For me, it's an entry in a database, and I need way more than that to completely think that there were no planes that day. Quite what hit things? I know I'm not going to go into stuff, but that's an entry in a database. Which I used to work in IT, so what?
Thank you very much. Another?
Yes.
Hi, my name is June Kelly. I live in Ireland. I'd just like to thank Matt and the other speakers today. It's been a real privilege and an honour to hear people with such courageous commitment to such a huge lie, and what to use these lies which promote then in turn horrific war against mainly civilian people in the world. But just getting back to something, Matt, did you mention about, because I've often wondered myself about the passenger list of the 2 planes that went into the twins. We know the names of the people who died within the tower, such as your brother, and but to get a passenger list of the people who were on the 2 so-called planes that went in to the twins, is there such a passenger list? And has anybody verified?
There's no authenticated manifest. They've released a list, and it's I don't know the details. There's a great book called 9/11 Counterfeiting Evidence or something by Elias Davidson, which really goes into detail about the passengers, the flights, and the myth of the 19 hijackers. Sorry, I didn't mean to be rude to that chap before, because I know that there are also reports of planes continuing flying and all the rest of it. But this is, for me, it's really important to establish and authenticate. If you really think it was AA-11, for God's sake, produce evidence of the serial numbers, and then we can put that to bed. But that hasn't been done. So I understand where you're coming from. I just don't put too much credence on an entry in a database, that's all. Even though I know they amended it a few years later or whatever they were supposed to do. Right, cool.